Cyberdonut has got this far with a sales leader who is frankly more of a sales manager and with no one who's actually leading marketing. As you will hear in this episode, Q3 results were not that great, and CEO Bill Wallace is feeling a little bit nervous about his chances of hitting the $10 million ARR number by the end of next year. So he wants to hire a true sales leader, and he wants the same sort of level of person for marketing, so that in his mind, he can de-risk the chances of getting to the $10 million ARR number for the end of next year. Which is why Josh White, the SVP of North America for Intaso, joins us today. Josh routinely works with and advises CEOs and go-to-market leaders on their hiring. And in this episode, he does the same for Bill Wallace, who is the CEO of Cyberdonut. He surprisingly advises Bill not to hire one of the go-to-market leaders that he's thinking about right now. So listen to find out which one and why. And he talks about things like candidate profiles, timing of hires, how to select and go through the process, and also, importantly, the real candy, which is how much Bill should expect to pay these go-to-market leaders when they come into the company. I'm Andrew Monaghan, and this is a Cybersecurity Go-to-Market podcast where we tackle the question, how can Cyberdonut get to 10 million in ARR by the end of 2025? All right, well, Josh, here we are. Welcome to the podcast, and welcome everyone back. As we follow the journey of Cyberdonut, as we've talked about before, Cyberdonut's in a crunch. They have to hit $10 million of ARR by the end of next year. Otherwise, they will shut down. The VCs have said that there's only so much money around and they need to figure out the go-to-market. They need to figure out the product market fit, the go-to-market fit, and basically be a company that they feel like might actually make it by the end of next year. So it's a bit of a stretch. Now, for those following along on the Cyberdonut website, that's CYBRDonut, DONUT.com, we got the numbers on there, so we know how we're doing. We just wrapped up Q3 2024. Good and bad news. So we missed the revenue number. So the new ARR was only $332K. We added 4 customers in Q3. I think the number we were shooting for was more like 500 or 600. I forget exactly what it was, but we were way short of that. Good news, slightly better news, is we actually met the pipeline, the new pipeline generated goal. So you added 1.45 million in total pipe added in the quarter. So I think it was pretty much at number or just short of it, maybe. So right about the right sort of number. When you go to the board, it's pretty much we hit the number, right? If you're within a few percentage points, we call that good. And so we got a mixed bag, right? And as you go down and look at the headcount, we still got our sales leader in place. We don't have a marketing leader. We lost one of the AEs actually in the quarter, so we went down from 6 to 5 AEs. That guy decided it wasn't the right place for him and moved on. A couple SDRs, SEs. You can read along on the website. If you go to the website and scroll down, you'll see all these numbers laid out quarter by quarter, so we can track along and see how we're doing. For the relevance for this conversation is an interesting one, though. So Bill Wallace, who is the founder, CEO, he actually decided at the end of last year that he wanted someone to be the sales leader, but he didn't get someone too senior. He basically had someone who had been a first-line manager somewhere else and brought them in. And he knew that wasn't his strong point, so he wanted someone who was a bit more of a execution type person in sales and could bring on a couple of good people. So that sales leader came on board. Really, director level probably is the right kind of way to think about it, as opposed to VP or CRO. Bill decided not to hire a marketing leader, right? But he's had a demand gen person, a product marketing person, and that's it. So he's had 2 there. And now Bill's kind of feeling the crunch, right? He's like, oh crap, we got to get this whole thing figured out. And he's feeling like, the way that he's feeling is, I really feel like I need to add in a proper sales leader, bring someone in who has maybe done this kind of not to 10 million before or 1 to 10 million before. That's what he feels like is the right thing to do. And because pipeline is going to be, pipeline's a big hole right now. Although we hit the number, we're still way off, right? We were supposed to do, add an incremental, I think, 7 or 8 million in ARR next year. And we're sitting here with a total pipe of only 4 million, right? So we got a problem, right? So he's thinking, why don't I bring in a proper CMO as the person coming in to actually take hold of this? and make sure the programs are running are going to be high impact and go from there. So that's what he's feeling like, right? He's feeling like he needs to add a couple of pretty senior heads into the go-to-market engine. As you hear that, given your background, you're the SVP of North America in Intaso. As you hear that from Bill, is that a familiar thing that you hear from CEOs? Is that common? Or you sitting there nodding your head and going, "Yeah, this happens all the time."
Yeah, I think it's very common. Most startups will have not one, not two, not three. They'll have multiple points in their life where you've got a CEO founder like Bill who's sat there looking at the revenue targets, and they're, a lot of the time, the Bills of the world sometimes have more technical backgrounds as opposed to sales backgrounds, so they're sort of scratching their head, and I think part of their challenge is not knowing how to challenge the sales leader that they have in place today.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, I think in this case, there is a high likelihood that this may be the first sales leader that Bill has managed. And so the challenging thing about managing someone in sales is salespeople are very charismatic, right? And if there's one thing they're really good at, it's selling themselves, selling their position, and I'm sure the upward management is very good, right? Like, hey, Bill, I know it's a big number next year, but if we just hire a couple more AEs, I reckon we got this.
Maybe that's what's happening, right? I don't know.
Yeah. And I like to think about this inflection point as, do we need someone who's going to bring more process, more strategy, someone who is going to make Bill feel more assured that the goals next year are more likely to be met?
Well, let's talk about that then. If you look at these numbers, right? So in the first quarter, they added 3 customers, then next one 4, and then 4. So it's kind of flatlined a little bit, adding 4 customers a quarter. It's not bad, right? These are real live paying customers.
No.
They're not friends of Bill's, right? These are proper customers. So that's kind of good. Missed
not
the revenue number pretty big, either. Though. So I think Bill... Right. No, these are, we've done some programs. We've been dialing for dollars or emailing for dollars, whatever it might be. And we've got some progress, right? But, you look at Q3, we missed the actual revenue number, even though we added 4 customers, we missed it. And maybe, as you're saying, right, that Bill's kind of doesn't know that much about sales. He's feeling a little bit nervous, right? Is that what I do? I just need someone to come in and actually start delivering numbers. That's probably what he's thinking. I mean, we're not quite the scale yet to say we got a model where we need to bring in some process. It's probably more someone who maybe has that earlier stage. Let's deliver, 10 more customers a quarter rather than 4 more a quarter.
Yeah. I mean, it's that transition from having a player coach sales leader to having someone who is hired to do more sales management.
Yeah, no, I get that. And then would you say this is the right time to bring in, if he did bring in a leader and he did bring a CMO or a VP of marketing person, is this the right time? Do you think that it's good enough to get those 2 in, or would you delay one before you get the other?
I think, there might be some marketers who would disagree with me right now. But you've got a demand generation person, you've got a product marketing person. You're arguably better off holding off on the CMO, VP of marketing headcount, and having a maybe a VP of sales, CRO, who's also had exposure to leading marketing before. I mean, that does exist, and I know it can be a controversial topic, but then you've got an opportunity to maybe invest in someone to do content marketing, or invest in another 2 AEs. I mean, that could be those could be the sort of game-changing headcount.
Yeah, you not be short of finding salespeople who could market their side of market, right? It's a skill set that we have as salespeople. That we know
Yeah.
how to do the easy stuff, right? The marketing stuff. That's insightful, though, right? So CMO or VP marketing, that's an expensive headcount. Maybe delay for a quarter or two and use that money. You could pump it in some programs. You could bring on a contractor, something like that to get some focus. But I think what if Bill's feeling like, yeah, but I don't know. I mean, maybe the sales leader might help out, but I myself, as Bill, the CEO, I don't really have the experience to know whether what they'll be telling me are good programs to run or not. How would you advise them about that?
I think for someone who feels like they are unsure whether to up level a hire or sign off on a new VP C-suite hire, first of all, they need to think about the where they are at the moment, right? If they're looking at their current situation, the current person running sales, do they think that the challenge is that person isn't up to the task? It may be that if they go out to the market and hire someone at the same level, but who they feel is, got a better track record, or that might suffice in this circumstance. The reality is, I think most companies invest in a CRO or a CMO because they're stuck. They invest in that hire because they look to it as a silver bullet. Um, I placed a CRO recently, and he said to me, he said, Josh, said this is one of the first times where I feel like I've been hired to actually do the type of job that will influence, right? Like usually I'm hired and I get in there and I realize that, the technology doesn't work, or there's no product market fit. I mean, these are things that, that individual can obviously help with, but without a product or an engineering background, he's not going to make the technology work. And product market fit is a challenging one because, yes, I mean, look, sales and marketing can obviously help you in regard to that, but sometimes you're solving a problem that doesn't need to be solved yet, right? The market maturity.
Do you hear from your CRO candidates? Are they really zeroing in on that whole thing? Like, how do I know this company really has the traction and is ready to get the traction that they think they deserve?
Yeah. I think for anyone who, it usually takes for someone to get burnt once, right? Like usually I don't think I know a CRO sales leader who's joined a startup and 2 months in has very quickly realized they don't need me. We've got problems that mean that I can keep scaling sales, but if the technology or the market doesn't catch up, then, we're a year or two off. And I'm not saying we're never going to get there, but maybe we're a year off from me. Maybe we're 2 years off from me. So I think when someone's had that experience before, it does become really important to them because, being a CRO, CMO, being a revenue leader is a really tough grind in a startup. And not all startups are created equal.
How would they know, though, Josh? Right? I mean, you talk about how the salespeople are good at managing up and putting a positive spin. There's no one who gives more positive spin than the founder usually about how great things are.
Yeah.
And we just need someone to come in and fix a couple of things, and we're going to take off, right? So how does the
Yeah.
CRO know and cut through the BS and really know what's going on?
Yeah. I honestly think from that perspective, what they really need to do is talk to some customers. I think I think it's a very reasonable ask for a potential hire to say, hey, can you set me up with, three customers that aren't affiliated with any of your investors, right? And have those conversations and understand why they bought it, what else they looked at, the value it's bringing. Like, I think if you can really get to the, if you can really get under the hood on those things, then that really helps you qualify whether or not they've really got something that you can scale and it is scalable. And look, there's loads of other market research that you should be doing, right?
It's funny, as you were talking there, I reminded myself of a conversation I had with a head of sales last year. So he actually just landed a CRO gig somewhere just now. And I was asking him, like, when you go to your next gig, how will you pick, the company, right? We're more like market and company fit and things like that. Anyway, it came out that part of his process is he may also ask for customers, but what he does himself is he goes to his network and sets up for the company he's considering 5 calls.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I'll just set these up for you, right? My only deal is I sit in on the call, right? And so he sits on the call. He gets a chance to assess how they're pitching it, how they're talking. And if these are friendlies of his, so he goes to them afterwards and said, okay, what do you think? Is this,
brilliant?
Do you even need this stuff? How high priority is it? Things like that. You got to have a good network to be able to do that, and they want to help you out. And I think he's built up that trust over many years. But I love that approach, right? Because you're in control at that point about who you're talking to. There's no downside for the customer because they get to talk to 5 new prospects potentially, right? If you don't land your CRO, it's not the end of the world. It's you might have some more sales cycles going.
Yeah. I think the real big thing there is it's just about being really thorough with due diligence. And sometimes, you get caught up in the charisma of the founder, of the enthusiasm of the investors, of the 2 or 3 sort of big logos that are on the website, and the comp package and the equity they're talking about, and the hey, we're gonna blow this thing up and sell it in 4 years, or we're gonna IPO, and the danger is when you do get excited, that's when your guard's down, right?
Yeah, you get the post on LinkedIn with the LFG and the rocket ship emoji.
Yeah. A few fire emojis.
Yeah. So let's talk about this side. So we kind of put the marketing hire on hold, right? Let's just say we're going to wait for that. We do want to Bill does want to bring in his proper sales leader.
Yeah.
What profile would you recommend the Bill looks at of that leader?
I mean, looking at the team size right now, we've got 5 AEs, we've got 2 SDRs, 2 SEs, we've got a CAM, we've got a RevOps person. We've got a decent enough sized team that I would say I probably wouldn't hand out a CRO title at this point. And I do think this is an important distinction because there will come another point, providing that Cyberdonut meet their goals next year and they get more investment, there's going to be a point where this conversation is happening again, but we're saying they're stuck at 12 million and they want to get to 25, or they can't raise their next round of funding. And if you hire a CRO now, then it means that you can't easily hire one later without causing some upset. So what I would do personally is pitch it as a VP of sales role. I'm sure the right person might talk you into giving away the CRO title, but that might not be my recommendation from the first instance. VP of sales role, someone who has done a similar stage company. Doesn't need to be that they've done 1 to 10. It could be that they've done, actually 5 to 20 might be more interesting, but it's not going to be someone who's done, who's been a cog in a much larger business. Definitely someone who's, got a real appreciation for sales process and sales methodology. All the stuff that you're great at, right? Someone who is going to be able to help drive closing more business, because I think you referred to it earlier. When you look at the qualified pipeline and you look at how much they're closing, I mean, it could be a lot better. The other thing too is look for someone who, whilst they have great sales management skills and a focus on all of that good stuff, sales process, sales methodology, someone who wants to be out in the field with people. Because at the end of the day, like for a lot of these AEs, in a 15-person go-to-market org, you're going to be out there trying to close every deal, whether it's a, 50K deal or or you're about to try and close your biggest ever at 250. Like you're going to need to be there.
Yeah, I feel like at this stage, the head of sales should be all over every deal. Every
100%.
possible deal should be all over that. You can't sit there and say to the board, well, I didn't go to that meeting or I wasn't really involved, right? You want to be there, you want to help drive it, and then give the credit to the AE, right? You want to
absolutely, yeah. In the wrong circumstance, someone might feel like their pipeline is being micromanaged, but really, what they need to look at it at is, the right sales leader who's really going to move the dial for a company like Cyberdonut is going to be the person that means that your win rate increases because they're bringing. It's not just about credibility, right? But it's about experience. It's about having the nerve to say, yeah, we're not going to drop 5 percentage points. We know that your team, you're sat there with procurement and, procurement are trying to hammer you down. And actually those little things make a real difference.
Now, would you advise Bill to stay with someone inside cybersecurity or to look beyond cyber somewhere?
I would say that someone from cyber is critical. There's a couple of reasons. One, the chances are that they, and look, I don't think that the Rolodexes are what they used to be, because I think the world's changed and selling's changed a lot. But someone who's got some relationships is going to make a big difference, right? Like if they can help you open a few more doors in some large enterprise customers, that's a game changer. Someone who knows the partner ecosystem, again, that is such a big multiplier and such a big opportunity for a small startup like Cyberdonut. And finally, when you think about hiring, building an entire team through me is expensive, right? If you hire a VP of sales who doesn't come from cyber, they're not going to bring a network of people they could bring with them, right? If you hire someone from cybersecurity, then they're so much more likely to have all of these great people that they've worked with before, that they trust, that they've got, buy-in from, who can come and work with Cyberdonut too. So it's going to reduce your headhunter spend dramatically.
All right, Josh, let's get to know you a little bit better. I've got, believe it or not, 49 questions on my list right here. The good news is I don't ask you 49 questions. I'm going to spin this wheel and it's going to spit out 3 completely random questions for you. And as a long-time listener to the podcast, you'll know that our advanced algorithm that does all sorts of ML and AI stuff makes sure that the questions that we get that spit out are completely random. And we can ensure the integrity of the whole system by doing that, right? So I'm going to spin this wheel. I'm going to see what questions it comes up with. You ready to go?
Yeah, good to go.
Oh, that doesn't happen very often. Question number 1 is, how did you make money as a kid?
Honestly, I was one of those kids that got into like all sorts of different stuff, from like just like going around my parents' house, finding, bits and bobs to sell, like old like Sky, cable boxes. I used to order headphones on eBay and then go around school selling them. But yeah, I got my first job when I was technically a kid. I think I was 15 years old, working in a House of Fraser, a department store in England, selling suitcases. So yeah, I would say I was sales was the only route for me pretty early on.
And which part of the world, which part of England were you in?
I grew up in Farnborough in Hampshire, so about an hour south of London.
Famous for its air show.
Exactly, yeah. Which for most people is quite an exciting thing. For me, growing up, I used to just complain about it. Even though, like, when you're a kid, it meant that you got like the afternoons off for like a week. So that was pretty good. But besides that, traffic and noise.
Noise for sure, I would imagine. All right, let's move on to the next question. Let me spin the random wheel of greatness here. Here we go. All right, number 37. What's an embarrassing or memorable moment in your career so far?
Yeah, I had one a few years ago. I think it was like, around the holidays, I realized I've been really head down delivering on a load of searches. I hadn't been in touch with a lot of my network. So I thought, you know what, I'll send out one of those famous mass emails from a CRM saying like, does anyone want to catch up? And just completely did the wrong thing with like the first name thing. So I ended up sending an email to like 200 people who knew me saying, hello, first name. And I mean, there's a lot of good stories that came off the back of it, but incredibly, most of it was people calling me to laugh at me. That was the first part of it. And then the second part of it was I actually ended up picking up quite a lot of business off the back of it. Like I probably had like 3 or 4 people that were like, weird email, Josh, you not sure that's what you meant to do, but do you want to help me with this job? So, it was embarrassing, but it worked out.
No, that one worked out for sure. All right, let's go with the next question. I'm going to spin the wheel here. All right, number 21. What is the story behind your first or getting your first job in the cybersecurity world?
Yeah, I was a finance transformation headhunter in the UK, and the company that I worked for at the time were looking for, I was asked to come out to the US. They wanted to open up in the US, and I thought we were going to do finance transformation again, which was a market that I knew really well. And then they sort of said, hey, I think we're going to do this cybersecurity thing. I knew basically nothing about it until I got here, which was 5 years ago, October.
5 years ago in October, you moved out here to tell, was it financial integrations positions? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was. We used to recruit people to do like large scale finance transformation programs. So ERP transformation, shared service centers. So, but anyway, like the world of recruiting for cybersecurity startups is, to be honest, way more interesting. I predominantly recruit for salespeople, so I get to, talk to people that quite frankly, I probably get on with better than maybe I got on with some of the finance execs.
So we've looked at all the, let's call them the tangible things, experience, the background, what they're at, things like that. What tips would you have for a Bill to really get to know this person? Let's say they're down to, a couple of people on the short list. How would you recommend a Bill to go really get to know and get past the, all the glossy stuff we talked about beforehand to really get to know the 2 candidates?
Yeah, I think if you're starting to get serious, you should go spend some time in person. And I think at that point it's appropriate to, spend a couple of hours, do some sort of, some whiteboarding if that's what you're feeling. Go for a lunch, go for a dinner. I think it's making an effort to try and to simulate what a working relationship might feel like, but also what a working personal relationship would look like. Get to know what, I think what a CEO founder really needs to do is get to know that person. What's motivating them? Why are they doing this? Why, they've done it before and they've probably had some wins and some losses. Why do they want to do it again? Are they crazy? Like, have they looked at Cyberdonut's, progress and thought, oh yeah, a mil to 10 mil in a year. I mean, it's a tall order, right?
And you often sit in the middle, Josh, right? So you're there, you're like counselor, right? In between the founder and the CRO candidates. What do you see as you're trying to bring them together? What data points or personality points are you looking at to say, because you want to make sure the right people match up.
Yeah.
You don't want to, have someone jam down their throats and just hope it sticks, right?
Yeah. I think look, there's lots of questions that I ask people, I can say to someone, well, what's it like to work for you, right? And they'll give me a perspective, but it's really, through multiple meetings is when I really start to get a feel for someone's personality. And I also think that after Bill's met two candidates through me, and I start, getting a feel for, right, what did he like? What did he dislike? What did he gravitate to? Why did he gravitate towards that? That's when I really start to build a good sort of benchmark on what they're really, what's really important to them. And I also think it's challenging, right? It's saying, hey, you said you didn't like this person because of X, but I'm not sure whether that's right. Like, I think you should reconsider that. So I think through spending time with people through the process, you really start to learn what's going to work. But it's just getting a real feel for their culture and their working styles. A lot of these CEOs, founders, I mean, they don't sleep. They'll email you at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. And guess what? If you don't respond, until 8 a.m. the next day, they're probably going to hold that against you. And I think, I always talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And I met a CEO founder yesterday, and he was, they're looking at hiring their sort of first, I guess, 3-4 go-to-market people in the US. I said to him, what's the worst thing about working for you? And he was very honest that he's a bit of a maniac, works all hours, responds to stuff at bizarre times, very demanding. And I think the most important thing that I can do with that is not talk to a candidate and say, he's a great guy, very relaxed, really values work-life balance. The reality is I'll go and say, look, he's probably going to work you like a dog. And that's not for everyone, right?
Yeah, some people gravitate towards that and go, yeah, that's my jam right now. Whatever. And some people kind of run a mile the other direction. Can you think of, you said before that you've had to challenge CEOs to say, well, do you really, really want that, right? Can you think of an example where you've had to do that and what the outcome was?
Yeah, I mean, I had one. I've definitely had ones where, I mean, the most awkward one is when someone perceives that their business is more sexy than it is.
That never happens, Josh. Come on. Founders never believe their stuff doesn't smell, right?
And, you talk to, and it's, trying to articulate that, trying to educate them on, all right, I know that you want someone up here. Your business is here right now. So, let's reset our expectations. And why don't we look at some people here and see what you think? But at the end of the day, sometimes people want to be proved wrong for themselves, right? They want to go after the person who's the A star, the dream hire for them. And sometimes they need to offer them for them to get rejected. And then for me to not say, I told you so, but say, all right, let's regroup and let's consider looking at people, that have done X instead of Y. I mean, everyone tries to gamify hiring. So someone will look at a company that's done really well, right? A company that's had unicorn status, that's, been the fastest growing to 100 million ARR, whatever that is. And they'll look at it and go, if I hire someone from there, that will happen to me. And that is the most common thing. I mean, and it's not true.
Well, I imagine if I'm Bill right now, right? Tough hire, right? Because as you say, in 2 years, they need to go from 0 to 10 million in ARR, right? That's basically what we're asking them to do. I might be sitting there going, Josh, I need you to go and headhunt Colin Jones from Wiz, right? He was the first CRO. Go get him, right? And you'll be sitting there going, dude, you're asking them from 0 to 10 million in 2 years. you might want to just think about what that really means and who might take that on, right?
Yeah.
It might be Colin, it might not be Colin, right? I don't know, right? But you might want to, dial down your expectations, Bill, a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the reality of what I do is, I'm always very comfortable I always tell people, I'm anything but a yes man. I'll always be the first one to challenge you constructively. But if you tell me you want me to try and go after Colin at Wiz, I'll pick up the phone to Colin at Wiz and I'll let you know what he says.
Right. You might not want to know it.
Yeah,
So a
yeah.
slightly different tangent. I talked to a founder a few months back, and he decided not to hire a leader, but he actually went to his biggest competitor and hired what he called their top 3 or 4 salespeople.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said within 4 months, 3 of the 4 had gone. He wasn't entirely clear. I got the impression he moved them on, right? His thing was they just weren't working out. They didn't deliver stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
If you were to hear that, what are you thinking? Are you thinking, maybe you didn't know how to manage them, how to work with them? Is it not a good idea to go after
I'm
competitors'
thinking
people?
that they probably, if he hired someone from a top competitor, that means that he's probably putting that competitor on a pedestal, right? So he's impressed by what they've done, and they want to replicate some of that success. And chances are they might have, their products might be better. Their infrastructure might be better. They might have more referenceable customers. They might have better sales support in terms of anything from tools to systems to whatever that might be. They might just have more resources. I mean, the biggest reason I think why a lot of reps would do well at company A who have got to 100 million, but not company B who are at 1 million ARR and want to be at 100 million ARR, is exactly that company B doesn't have the same hype around it.
Yeah, people underestimate that. One of the things I was talking to another leader recently, and he asked me the question, would you go work for a company again? And I said, yeah, I might do. And then he said, so what would you look for? And one of the things I said is that I would be absolutely zeroed in on who are the CEO founders who have that thing, right?
Yeah.
When they stand up, people stop and listen. When they have a viewpoint, people nod and don't fall asleep.
Yep.
Right. When they're in the room, there's the aura, they have the command, they get the PR just naturally about who they are.
Yeah.
Because that makes your life so much easier when you're out there, when you have someone like that versus someone, and I've talked to CEOs like this on the podcast. I've probably had a couple that might qualify as this. They're very reserved, and you kind of it's hard work. And when they listen, you're kind of wondering what you're having for dinner that night. When they talk, you're wondering what you're having for dinner that night. I know I'd rather have the former. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, I met someone recently, 3rd-time founder. It's going to be some of the easiest recruitment I ever do because, the only thing that, everyone wants to work for someone who's done it before, someone who's done it twice successfully and sold to big names in the industry. I mean, that's the dream.
Yeah. I remember, final story on this, and then we'll get on to the next topic. 2 years ago, I got on an episode to record an interview with Eric Olden, who is the CEO at Strata, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to admit to it. If Eric's listening to this, I'll tell him this. But I had a couple of calls before it. I was running very fast that day. I had some notes about who he was and what he'd done, but I didn't sit there for half an hour prepping as I should have done. And I kind of cut on the call, and I realized in the first 5-10 minutes of the call, this guy knows his shit, right?
Yeah.
And I realized, he said, I built 2 identity companies already, sold them both to RSA for 500 million and 700 million or something like that. This is my 3rd go around, and he showed up my little interview on my podcast with like 4 pages of notes about what he wanted to talk about with the topics that we'd pre-agreed to talk about. Yeah. He was ready to go, right? I sat there just as you said, right? I sat there and went, here's a guy I would work for, right? He knows his shit. He knows how to get it done. He has some really interesting takes about how to do go to market, which I thought were very informed. as opposed to, well, I just heard a dude at a conference last week say something like this, right?
Yeah.
Very different experience or aura around Eric than some others.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Cyberdonut, right? So we could have narrowed down a little bit the type of person. How long for Bill? He's just come out of Q3. He's a little bit panicked about the numbers. He's saying, I need to hire someone tomorrow, right? How long will it take Bill to get someone on board, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 weeks of search. And I'm not saying it's going to take me 2-3 weeks to find some people. I'll probably have people in the first few days, but it's as we sort of weed through people is, I think by the end of the third week, you're probably going to have a sort of a group of people progressing beyond first, beyond second that you feel quite excited about. After that, it really depends on how long your interview process is. I recommend that really you should be getting interview processes wrapped up in 2 to 3 weeks. CEOs, founders are busy. The investors that they probably need to meet are busy. So it doesn't always work out that way. If everything goes to plan, then, you could have someone at the very earliest, probably 6-7 weeks from commencing the search. If scheduling's a nightmare, if expectations are unrealistic, we could be still having this conversation 2 months later, 3 months later.
That sounds like a bit of a nightmare for someone like Bill, right? Who needs to deliver some results. You said something there interesting, though. It depends on the process. On sales LinkedIn these days, there's a lot of noise around never-ending hiring processes and things like that. What are you seeing out there? Is that real? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think it exists. The most punchy processes tend to be 4 stages. Sales leadership though, like I don't think it's absurd if you're hiring a sales leader to put them through a 6-8 interview process, right? And to be diligent with sort of back channeling. It's a big hire. It's very important. You don't want to rush that. I think in some circumstances it is dragged out. I think the noise on LinkedIn about it is not always about leadership roles and much more about sort of, junior roles, maybe even mid to senior level roles to a degree where people are just in, just having decision paralysis. And you're seeing a lot of that in the last 18 months because the hiring market, the hiring landscape changed so much. We had 2020, 2021, 2022 to a degree, big boom years. And then things kind of dropped right off. So there was a time where people were, hiring like crazy and trying to push someone through 4 interviews in a week just to secure the talent because it was a race for talent, right? Now it's flipped. There's more people available. So guess what? Companies take their time a little bit more and they're a bit more choosy.
Yeah. Feels like you have to get the balance though, because you keep waiting for the best candidate, right? And you feel like, there's going to be someone better next week, and you just never get to actually get someone on board.
I mean,
you must have to manage that process.
Just
for people.
the cost of getting it wrong is so high, but realistically, we don't get every hire right. The most important thing, and I say this all the time, and I think sometimes people think it's counterintuitive advice from someone in my industry, is firing fast is really important. And that is what I see that most startups aren't good at. They hold on to someone. They're so scared to not have someone in that role doing that work that they would almost rather have someone doing a mediocre job than not have someone.
Yeah. Warm body rather than nobody, right?
Yeah.
Which, when you got a small number of people, it's whether you can really afford to do that. If you're a large company, you can get away with that. And, we've seen that, right? But startups is different. Speaking of things that
creates a toxicity in the culture, right? Which slows down the whole business.
Yeah, it permeates everywhere. It's like a cancer.
Yeah.
Speaking of things which maybe startups might not be the best at, how do you help people, or how do you assess interview processes and the intentionality around interviews? What I've experienced before is we got someone coming in today for this role. Will you talk to them for half an hour? Right.
Yeah.
And then you go talk to them and then they say, what do you think? There's no structure to it. I don't know. So what do you see? How do
Yeah.
you help people kind of not make the mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, I always do a bit of information gathering. Have you hired someone like this before? What things are you assessing through the process? And then from there, I'm able to, give some advice. And that makes a big difference. But, again, like, I think the biggest thing that I really urge people to do is to prepare. Like, take the time to look at the person's profile, read their resume. I know that's old fashioned advice these days, but read the piece of paper, make notes on it, turn up to that interview as prepared as you would expect that other person. Because if that other person, if the person you're interviewing turned around and said, so tell me what you guys do, you'd probably end it right there, right? You'd be like, how dare they turn up to an interview and not know? You'd be infuriated. So I think the biggest bit of advice I give is prepare for success.
Yeah, that's so good. I think I don't know if you have templates or things like that you give people, but I feel like people are crying out for that a little bit to say, here's the profile we're looking for, here's the types of things we want to ask the person. Now we'll divide up who does what and come together afterwards. I feel like they're really crying out for that sort of structure sometimes. So, Josh, let's talk about one of probably the most important thing for people listening to this. Let's talk about comp.
Okay.
So we got this VP of sales. They're somewhat experienced. They might have done something early stage before with a bit of success.
Yeah.
That's who we're looking at. Well, what are we paying these people these days? Let's talk about OTE. Let's talk about stock. Let's talk about weird and wacky things which might be in the comp package somewhere.
I would say, for the size of company we're talking about, we're probably looking 400,000 OTE on the low end and 500,000 on the high end. In terms of factors that might change that, I mean, maybe you're saying that someone who's at the higher end of the budget is is in San Francisco, is in New York. We might be saying that they are coming from a competitor. Lots of factors. Sometimes they might have, some stock that they've got that they're walking away from. So they want something a little bit extra coming in. But yeah, 400 to 500 OTE on a 50-50 split should absolutely get you someone here. Equity is a funny one. There are so many factors. How much you've raised, how diluted there are, how many classes of stock there are. I've seen anything from, for this sort of level, anywhere from 0.5 to probably 2.5%, which, is the more meaningful stuff, I think, is, what the cliff is. I mean, the standard cliff is a year, right? So, if you can get anything better than that, that's great. Because, you look at the average tenure of a sales leader in cybersecurity, it's probably 18 months roughly. So most people, they get to their cliff and then maybe they get, partly vested. Usually you're seeing a 4-year vest. I've seen accelerated vesting schedules. They do exist. I think they're a great thing to negotiate if you can negotiate them. I think it's very mission centric. Like if the company says, hey, we want to go from, in this case, if Cyberdonut said, look, we want to go from 15 customers to 50 customers, and then, we think we're going to sell, then you might say, well, I think I want a 2-year vest, not a 4-year vest, because, if we sell in 2 years, I'm only going to be, 50% vested. You've got accelerated vesting. So should the company go through a liquidity event, then your remaining shares get auto vested. That's quite a tricky one to negotiate. We saw that a lot in 2020 and 2021 and parts of 2022, but with the market shifting, that's being given away a lot less now. I think severance is a really important thing that feels very awkward for people. I think for a VP of sales, for a VP of marketing, CRO, CMO, the average tenure, as I said, is probably 18 months. And realistically, in a market like today, it could take you 6 months on average to find a new gig. Sometimes you get fired from that role, not because you've done anything wrong, not because you're not good at your job, but because, hey, startups don't always work out, right? So I think negotiating, at least 6 months severance is a really good thing to do.
And would you get pushback from the founder CEO that I can't believe this person's asking for this?
All the time, yeah. And I've had it before where people have been like, I can't believe that they'd ask for this. Like, are they planning to not work out? I always like to explain it like football or soccer managers, right? Like, you have brought me in on a 3-year contract. If you choose to go a different direction within that 3-year period, then you're buying me out of the rest of my contract. If I choose, if someone chooses to try and take me somewhere else, then they have to buy you out of this contract. I mean, that side of it happens less in our world, but definitely the former, I think it's a good example.
And do you usually get the founders to kind of see the light on it a little bit and understand why the motivations, or sometimes it's a hard no?
It's 50-50. I would say all of these things are, I always think about everything as being different levers to pull, right? Like, accelerated vesting, right? If you get that, but you don't get the severance, maybe that's a win.
Right. I think maybe one thing that people don't realize is a lot of levers out there, right? And, there's give and take and all the rest of it. You got to figure out how you're going to meet in the middle sometimes.
Yeah. The other thing is guarantees around compensation, right? You look at a company like Cyberdonut and, I know lots of VPs of sales who are, who join and they're, I don't know, 200K base, and they might not, sometimes sales leaders don't start seeing bonuses until the team's at 70% of their number, which means, they might have 2-3 quarters where they're making nothing but their base. I mean, I'm not saying it's not enough to live on, but if you're coming from a more established role where you've got run rate and you're earning commission and sales bonus every quarter, to go into Cyberdonut where you've got a tall order, I mean, some guarantees around cash comp for the first 6 months is very reasonable, because the work that you do isn't probably going to impact the number for the next quarter or two.
Right. It's going to take a while for things to work out, for sure. And, look at this, 4 orders a quarter. I mean, it's not zero, but it's not a lot.
Yeah.
A couple of those not to quite work out, and suddenly you're not doing too well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I could see that. Any weird and wacky stories, Josh, about situations you thought you got all buttoned up and they fell apart, or weird demands from a founder or from a CRO that you kind of scratch your head at a little bit?
Oh, so many. I mean, the biggest and most common one is just is egos in the chase. I've had it so many times where it's like, the founder wants the candidate to say, I want you guys, and the candidate wants the candidate, it's the vice versa. And it's like neither party, right? It's like the dating world, which I've not been in for a very long time, but it's like, these people get to the third or fourth date and they haven't told each other that they like each other. And so I always say to people, look, put your cards on the table. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's quite a vulnerable thing, hiring or taking a new job. Like, we really open ourselves up a little bit. And I think, it's in a startup, you are always one good hire away from feeling like you've taken 10 steps forward.
Or 10 steps back.
Or 10 steps back if you get it wrong.
I bet. Well, on that note, Josh, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to give you the search for our VP of Sales, who's going to deliver whiz-like results. So we're going to give you a tall order to go out there. We're going to pay them below market rates, but expect the world from you. So we're looking forward to bringing our new VP of Sales onto Cyberdonut and start making a difference, because God knows we need it, right? We're going to go from now our ARR is 1.2 million. You can get up to 10 million in just 5 quarters. That's going to be tough to do, but we got some great advisors. You've just joined the advisory board for Cyberdonut. We have some really cool people in there already. I've got my Save Cyberdonut swag on. Those are watching on video can see that.
How do I get myself one of those? Do I have to be successful with the search?
You know what? Rather than pay you hard cash, Josh, I'm going to send you a T-shirt.
Great.
That's what. That's how much we pay our search partners these days. So a nice T-shirt is going to head off to Chicago for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, listen, thanks for joining. What's the best way to get hold of you, Josh?
LinkedIn. I am busy on it, noisy on it, so that is a good place to see me.
You're a very reasoned and logical and balanced person on LinkedIn, unlike a lot of it. So I commend you for that. So anyway, that's how people get a hold of you. And I'll talk to you next time.
All right. See you soon, Andrew. Thank you.